This is Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance coming to you from San Diego County, joined by Mike Diaz. He is a candidate for the Chula Vista City Council, and this is a very different year in terms of city council races in Chula Vista. For the first time, Chula Vista is electing council members by district. It's a wave. You know, the California Voting Rights Act of 2001 requires it, and now cities are adopting it. Talk to us about running by district as opposed to citywide.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Because on one side of that sword, you may have elected officials that try and just be strict advocates for their district, which we want. But the level of strictness is where it becomes a problem.
You get put into silos. And so District 3 only works for District 3, District 4 only for District 4. That's the argument against. But the argument for is?
Well, the argument for is that you're able to advocate for issues that are specific to your district. And for people like me that have lived in District 4 for over 50 years, I've raised my kids there. I have friends there. We know the district in that area very well. So naturally, as a district, and being an elected official, I know the issues to that little part of Chula Vista. But we need to make sure that when we look at it, we got to be holistic, look at the entire city, what's good for the entire city, but not forget where we came from.
It should be interesting. I want to talk in 5 years and see how this experiment goes. It's going to be permanent, presumably. But I do think it becomes a real question as to whether voting at large or by district benefits the city. I mean, look, you do have over 250,000 residents, so arguably a city that size, 50,000 each, feels like it can work. But if it's a city of only 50,000, it begs the question. Anyway, I want to talk about other issues facing Chula Vista. You yourself are a firefighter, and so it's near and dear to your heart. And I understand that Chula Vista is facing some challenges as it relates to response times for fire. I guess the goal is to have a response time of under 7 minutes 80% of the time. That hasn't happened since 2010. We've had 78% in 2015, 76% in 2014, 75% in 2013. We're in the right direction, at least. What's going on, sir?
Well, I think it's a commitment to public safety, and it needs to be a priority. Government really, at the end of the day, is only responsible for one thing: important infrastructure and the safety of its community.
Sure.
Period. Nothing else. And so I think what we need is people that understand that safety is the number one priority. So let's talk about that for a second. We can pay it one way or the other. We're either going to pay it like the oil frang guy would say, commercial would say, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. So when we respond to emergency and you're not breathing, for every minute that goes by, it's going to take longer for you to recover from that.
And think about this, and you know this better than I, but the difference between 5 minutes and 7 minutes with no oxygen is significant. 5 minutes, we can bring you back. 7 minutes could be brain damage and survive, and then who pays?
Yes.
We do.
Well, I hate to be crass, but dead is dead.
Yeah.
Okay? We just put you in the ground. But the problem really is if we don't get there in time, when 30 seconds counts, you may not be able to walk the rest of your life. Right. There may be some deficit you incur because of the lack of oxygen. So the thing is, we're going to pay for it one way or the other. Where we pay lifetime to take care of you, right? Or do we just do that? Do we pay on the front end and make sure we get there in time?
But what's happening? Because look, the goal nationally is 5 minutes in terms of response time. Chula Vista is looking at a 7-minute goal, and yet it's only hitting it between 75 and 80%. Is there a training question? Is there lack of funding at issue? What are we facing?
Well, in my opinion, it's a resource density issue. And what that means is our fire stations are spread out too far. They need to be closer together. We have challenges with regards to roads. How many roads can get our police and fire to an incident quicker? Do we have to take small roads, bigger roads? So there's an issue of planning around that.
So let's presume victory by Mike Diaz. What can you do as a council member, one of 5, I presume, to improve this? You're one of five. It's a revenue issue. It's roads and bridges, which is, county and state. What can you do?
Well, we need to prioritize. So typically in government, it's never really, in my opinion, a funding issue. It's a spending issue. And so we need to sharpen our pencils and say, at the end of the day, are we committed to public safety? Are we committed to prioritizing that? And if we are, we need to make the hard decisions. That's why you're electing me, to make those tough decisions.
At the same time, I'm going to push you a bit if I may. Like you suggested, the fire stations may be too far apart. So a simple solution could be, let's build more fire stations. That does take money. And the voters of Chula Vista are considering whether to increase sales tax by 0.5 cent for 10 years. It would raise, I guess, about $16 million. One could argue that could help, but I understand Mr. Diaz opposes Measure P. Talk me through it.
Well, okay. So the proof is in the pudding.
Please.
If public safety is really a priority for our elected officials, why aren't we meeting the response time? Because they are not willing to spend the money where it needs to be spent. So then those that are supporting the Prop P, what they're telling us is our elected officials are supporting public safety, but they're not. They're clearly not. So why?
It's tricky. I get it. Look, it's a push-pull, and I don't know, many people that want their taxes to go up a bit, but, one could argue in a crisis, you do turn to your voters. I would mention, of course, in the county of San Diego, Measure A is on the ballot. Chula Vista is in San Diego County. That would increase the sales tax by 0.5 cent. So if Measure A and P pass, that's another cent in Chula Vista, although because the Prop 30 sales tax is expiring, it would drop by 0.25 cent. So there are a lot of issues before us on the sales tax issue.
Right. In the sales tax issue, if countywide, if you look at Chula Vista, if everything comes to fruition, and there's another bond that's going to be on the ballot as well, we are now pushing closer to 10%.
You're talking about it, the Southwest, the Southwest bond for the community college district, right?
And so, so when you look at that, that affects people in my district, in the Southwest District, District 4. There are groups and neighborhoods in my district that the median household is $20,000 a year. And I scratch my head. How do people do that? And then any small increase is going to hurt them.
Let's talk about housing, if we may. Because housing, you're ready. I can tell Mr. Diaz is ready. Housing continues to be a challenge throughout California. San Diego County is not immune. We're not building enough houses in our state to meet demand. We have a demand of about 250,000. We're building about 100,000. There's a push-pull in terms of regulation. Governor Brown would like to ease regulation, but then some locals are concerned that takes away local control over land use issues. Where do you land on this?
Well, I believe in total local control to begin with. But here's a problem with the housing issue in the region. We have it totally upside down. 40% of all new cost of new homes, regulatory fees, 40%.
So doesn't that argue for a pullback on regulation to the extent that Governor Brown is looking to do that?
Well, I don't know exactly how he wants to do that, but let's talk about that for a second. We do need to reduce regulation. We do need to reduce fees. If you're going to get in the market and you go, well, you know what, condos pretty much a great place to start.
Right.
And I go, that condo is going to cost you $300,000, and you go, I can't afford it. But if I say, you know what, what if I give you a break and I take off 40% of that? You go, wow, I can love that. I can deal with that.
So maybe the question is local regulation needs to change.
Well, no, it's got to be county and state, because the state of California is greater regulation. But let me finish real quick, if I may. So
why don't you come back and we'll talk more about it.
Okay.
We're out of time. I apologize. His name is Mike Diaz. He is a candidate for Chula Vista City Council on Pomerance. It's local edition. I already cut you off. It's just the clock was going.